Your Life Unfiltered podcast. And this podcast, we dig deep into the life experiences of our guests in order to connect the dots between what they are doing today and how it relates to their upbringing, their experiences in the past. And we have our guest today, Eitan Levine. He's a musician as well as an expert in supply chain. Eitan, do you want to quickly introduce yourself? And when you do that, I would love to hear more about your upbringing, your childhood, any kind of early motivations, inspirations that drove you to do what you're doing today.
Yeah, sure. Okay. I grew up in a town called East Windsor, New Jersey. It's near Princeton in Mercer County. And grew up there, stayed there till the age of 18, went to high school. And musically, I kind of got, I went through a lot of different moods of music, I would say. In the beginning, up until my high school early start, I was focused on listening to a lot of punk and rock and like The Offspring and Linkin Park. And then, I've always learned like music and piano through private piano lessons, doing classical training through a private instructor. And I kind of wanted to learn a little bit more about the jazz world because it was something that my friend was always involved with. And so one day in high school, I think it was my sophomore year, I auditioned for a jazz band. And after that point, I got really into improvisation and learning those tricks of the trade. And from there, it kind of spurred the whole beginning of my musical journey, I would say, from a performance perspective. And I joined a bunch of different bands with different genres, going into college, doing jazz, doing rock, doing hip hop, Latin, metal, trying to figure out all the different genres from a keyboard player's perspective. And, after college, continued that journey, went into R&B, just hooked up with a bunch of different jam sessions, different bands, and continued to just expand my musical horizon and education through kind of performance and playing with a bunch of different people and networking that way. And so, that was my musical journey in like a really high level summary, I would say. And it's led me to meeting a lot of new people, a lot of different musical experiences, entering a world of also music production in the past 5 years as well, which has been really awesome to kind of craft and create my own music through computer and, software. So that's been a whole other experience entirely, which has been super productive and fun. So that's my musical journey on a high level, I would say. But yeah.
That is amazing. And I do want to mention that music is not your full-time job, or is it your full-time? Because I saw that you work as a demand planning manager at one of the leading organizations. So you're actually also into supply chain. Do you want to talk a little bit more about that?
Sure. Yeah. So, I've been doing supply chain since I graduated from college. I was a supply chain major at the business school there. Actually, I was in the pilot program when supply chain first came out as a major at Rutgers University. So I think I was a year or two before Catul, or maybe two, because you went to Rutgers as well, Catul, right?
Yeah, I did.
School?
So I went to Rutgers Business School in Newark. I believe you went into New Brunswick, right?
Yeah, I went to New Brunswick, exactly. Supply chain, straight out of college, I graduated with a supply chain major, and basically the way it worked was every senior in a small pilot graduate class, there was 30 seniors because we were the first, and there was 30 booths at the career fair for supply chain. So basically everybody went to a booth and got a job, right?
That's awesome.
And
that's
so
awesome.
that's kind of how it worked. It was literally like a very easy funnel into the real world in terms of the job world. And my first job was L'Oreal, where I spent 8 years there. That's actually where I met Catul later on in my career there, and working in a few different functions, but namely supply planning. We called it market supply logistics there. I did some demand planning there as well, and also like a few odd jobs, I would say, in the warehouse and on the information kind of IT side of things. After 8 years there, and I transitioned to work in the liquor industry, Wanted a little change of pace, and there I went into an import supply kind of regional role, which expanded into more of a managerial role, and expanded roles, responsibilities. And so I got to learn a lot about the liquor industry, which is really different entirely from, just the regular retail CPG space. And, so I was at Campari for 3.5 years. And then more recently, in the past 3 months, I transitioned to another liquor company, Moet Hennessy, where I'm doing a role closer to demand planning. I would say there's some supply operations involved, but it's also a demand planning focused role as well. So working closer with the commercial teams and kind of getting a little bit closer to the business, I would say. So still learning. I'm still fresh there, but it's been a supply chain and musical journey at the same time. So
that's awesome. So
yeah.
Funny story for our listeners, actually. While I was in undergrad, I actually applied for an internship at L'Oreal, and guess who my interviewer was? None other than Eitan Levine. So I believe this was back, Eitan, when you were working at a New York office. So I distinctly remember this. I believe it was the sophomore year of college, and I applied for an internship. And I remember that in the email address that I got the interview invitation from, it was you with a keytar. And I remember you actually even had it in your signature about you, basically links to you playing the keytar. And that's why I remember that. And it's funny because at that time I didn't get that internship mainly because of scheduling issues, because I was, basically the interview would have been in New York City and I was in New Jersey, attending college. So it would have been so tough during school hours with coursework to make it in. So because of scheduling issues, I wasn't able to attend the interview. But the crazy part is, fast forward a few years, and then I actually got a job at L'Oreal in the same department as Eitan. So, and at first, when I first saw you, I was like, wait, you definitely look familiar. And then later on, I realized it's because you interviewed me a few years prior for that internship.
That's crazy. I honestly, to be completely honest with you, I don't remember that particular instance, but I totally believe you. I totally believe you, though.
I actually pissed you off. Actually, I distinctly remember that in the interview, and the reason was because of the scheduling issues, right? You're like, "Does this time work?" I'm like, "No." "Does this time work?" "No." And you got pissed off and said, I guess you don't, I guess you don't want to work here then."
Did I say that?
You literally did.
Oh, that's great. That's great.
So, and that's also definitely something you would say. That's why. That's exactly why I distinctly remember that.
Wow. Okay, so that was your first dose of me, I guess. Oh my god.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad we actually ended up becoming friends at the end of the day. So.
Yeah. Awesome. So, from supply chain to music, I have a very, very interesting question for you. I don't know if you've really thought it through, but I'm just curious to know your perspective on what are some of the similarities you can spot between these two seemingly disparate industries. They get totally different fields. Like, how do you connect the dots?
It's a great question, honestly. And I would say that there really are barely any dots to connect, right? I think in my mind, they use completely different sides of the brain, right? One is just completely pure operations and logic. A moves to B to C to D, right? And equals E. And then music, at least on a pure performance basis and a creative basis, you kind of have to turn that side of the brain off and just kind of let go. And it's more of a feel, right? Overall, from a performance basis. Obviously, there's a lot of learning and education and theory that goes behind music theory and all that stuff, and learning the instrument itself. But from a pure performance basis, once you're comfortable with that, it's completely the opposite. I would say, maybe in terms of helping me kind of do my practice schedules and keep things organized, and maybe from a production perspective, there's some more similarities because there's a more of a principle of organization. And I think in supply chain, I don't know, correct me if I'm wrong, Katul, but I know you know this too. From supply chain perspective, if you don't have your stuff organized in the right way at the right time, based on lead times, blah, 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 data elements, you're going to lose everything. You're going to lose control, right? So from that perspective, it's similar to production. If you don't have the right track, the right effects, the right kind of recording setup, everything has to be very particular when it comes to a production and recording environment. That's maybe you can say there's some kind of correlation from a supply chain mind, right? From an organizational and coordination perspective, I would say.
No, that's actually that's a good parallel. It's all about the setup, right? In both situations, you had to set yourself up for success. One is business oriented with supply chain. The other is creatively oriented. But still, I think you hit it perfectly. There has to be that element of the right setup being there for you to succeed in both disciplines.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's interesting though, because I often find that, when I have to turn off my mind, it's not always as easy, especially if I've had like a very intricate work week, right? Where my mind is still buzzing with like trying to analyze things. So, but that's a good question though. I like that one.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's almost. I think you're hitting on the spot here with the concept of right and left brain. I think the left brain is more analytical and right is more creative. So you're kind of utilizing entirety of it, but in different aspects. Like Ketul said, in business, the left brain and the creative on the right brain. That makes a lot of
Yeah.
sense.
So I have a question for you, Eitan. Is there a time of day that you feel like you're most creative, whether it's early mornings or late evenings or sometime in between? And the reason I ask that is because exactly what you said, it's a little difficult to sometimes switch gears between being in full-on analytical mode at work versus going to basically going to creative mode. So do you find there's like either a time of week or a time of day that you find yourself most creatively inclined?
Well, from a pure just like availability perspective, I mean, my weekends, where I have a lot of gigs, that's where the creativity kind of turns on just by necessity. But other than that, like during a regular day, I would say that, the nighttime used to be my time where I really focused. Like when I worked at L'Oreal, I specifically remember the night times were the time where I really produced a lot of YouTube videos, Instagram videos. I was a workaholic from a music perspective back then with the content creation. But nowadays, the creativity can come on randomly. It's not really specified for me personally. Like for example, today in the morning, I woke up around 7, took my dog out for a walk, and then around 8, I just randomly decided to open up a live session on my recording software and work on a track that I've been working on. And I had a lot of inspiration for whatever reason, and I can't really tell you why. Just kind of hit me. But I would say is not common for me to be like that creative that early in the morning, especially on a work week. So. But I still work. Don't worry. Like if this is being recorded, Moa Hennessy, I still started work at 9 o'clock. All right.
This is doing his lunch break.
This is pre-work routine. It's like yoga in the morning for me. Okay.
Yeah, it actually set him up to be more productive for the day.
Exactly. Cleared my mind.
Yeah, that's amazing. I mean, that basically, just out of curiosity, what's your process of creating music? I know there is no setup process. It's just sometimes the creativity hits you that like this morning, as you said. But generally speaking, on an average, what's your how do you approach creating new music? Is it more goal based? Like, do you have a gig so you have to kind of prepare in advance to produce music for it, or is it more like you're just thinking about some tunes and then you kind of put it on paper and just record it? Like, how does it work?
There is no, for me personally, I haven't necessarily, there's no formula, I would say, at least from a pure like creation of music perspective, like producing and recording. I don't necessarily have goals for that, because for me it's more free and it should be more fun to create music because it's not my full day job. But in terms of performing, which I do a lot of, like I'm heavily involved with a wedding band called the Jersey Joint. I have like 30 to 40 weddings per year now that I do. And then I used to do a lot of bar gigs. I used to do a lot of other kind of gigs, original music live gigs. But in terms of that kind of preparing for that creative mindset, that takes preparation still. I still have to study for tunes like First Dances, Mother Son Dance, all that stuff. So that takes preparation. That just takes regular homework kind of work. In terms of the creative mindset of a gig, I think, again, going back to what we were talking about letting your, whatever that side of the brain is, that's the creative side, is just letting it open up and like kind of like relaxing yourself to allow that to happen and to get out of like whatever analytical mode that you might have been in thinking about other things. It has to be more of a free flow. In a live setting. I don't know if that's clear, but that's the way it makes sense in my head currently. So,
no, absolutely. Makes a lot of sense.
All right, we're going to switch gears in 1 second to hit one of your alternate personalities. And I think you know exactly where I'm going with this one, Eitan.
Oh, yes.
But basically, a handful of years ago, Eitan was basically, he had an alter ego known as Snuggie Keytar Man. And we definitely want to hear that story. And for you guys that are listening, you can actually search Snuggie Keytar Man on YouTube. And there are plenty of videos. It's basically Eitan in a wig and jamming out with the guitar.
Well, Keytar, not a guitar.
Sorry, Keytar. I said
Yeah.
And if you want to spell that out for the listeners here.
Snuggie, like the old school, like infomercial bed cover. And then Keytar, Keytar Man. So Snuggie Keytar Man. But yeah, it was like this was one of the, like, a random viral video idea that didn't go viral, but it was still an idea that I wanted to just do. And it was actually funny the way, like, I thought about it. I still remember it was a senior year in college. I remember coming back home after a night at the bars, and just randomly at like 2 o'clock, maybe 3 a.m. After getting pizza with the local place, me and my housemate, we just like started writing skits out for this theoretical character called Snuggie Keytar Man. What he would be like, what would he encompass? What would be his mission, right? And you know, we started writing out just a bunch of skits, like, oh, Snuggie Keytar Man would just start shredding in front of like the principal or the counselor, or in the cafeteria of Rutgers University in front of people randomly, right? Just like all these kind of like awkward skit kind of things. Right. So drafted a bunch of just like random fun ideas. Never really did anything with it for a very long time. And then I think come 6 years, maybe 7 years later, I was just like, you know what? And I was talking to my friend Vinay, who knew about the Snuggie Keytar Man because he also lived in the house at the time in college. Very close friend of mine. He actually lives close by, and he lives in Jersey City. And I was like, yo, Vinay, would you be interested in like recording me while I go out in Jersey City and doing Snuggie Keytar Man? He's like, yeah, like, absolutely. I think the idea is like really good. And so we just did one night in Jersey City. I dressed up in a like a 80s hair metal wig, and wore the Snuggie, you know, did the whole thing, the whole like 80s metal hair glam thing. Brought my guitar out, bought a small amp that was battery powered, and went out in Jersey City and just started shredding in front of people, like trying to do like awkward things. And it was fun. It was like a cool experience. I never thought I would actually do it, but I did it. Put it on YouTube. Again, it's not viral by any means. You go and find it. There's like 400 views. It's really nothing.
It
Bro,
can go viral now.
Yeah, I was gonna say this podcast may put it on the map.
This podcast is gonna blow it up.
But I did want to talk about the cinematography for that video. So I actually remember like the opening scene on one of the videos is him just basically slowly going down an escalator with like an AC/DC song in the background.
Yeah.
So it's like a really funny opening.
I have to check it right now.
Yeah, so go check it out. Click the like button, subscribe.
Yeah, exactly. There we go. If you want to plug your YouTube channel right now.
Yeah, actually, it's not. So my artist name is technically the number 8ON. That's all my original music is on Spotify and YouTube and all that stuff. But the YouTube channel is actually just my full name. It's Eitan Levine. I don't know exactly what the actual extension on YouTube is, but it's Eitan Levine Music. Something like that. If you search, you'll find it. So EITAN LEVINE. So
awesome. Yeah. Is the Snuggie Keytar Man stuff there too?
Snuggie Keytar Man stuff is there. There's actually a Snuggie Keytar Man made a total of 3 appearances in my content videos.
Oh, there it is.
There was a reprise to the Jersey City nightlife, which I tried again. And then there was also just like a random kind of shredding video that I did at my house with assuming the character of Snuggie Keytar Man. So.
Oh my god, I love this. I just took a quick sneak peek. I'm gonna watch it later.
Okay.
My full attention, but
yes, pump the views.
So now the most important question that I'm sure our listeners are asking is Snuggie Keytar Man gonna make a comeback?
Is Snuggie, you know, it's been talked about. I mean, namely with Vinay, honestly, like he's like one of my biggest supporters in terms of the Snuggie Keytar Man franchise and idea. He thinks it has a lot of potential. I honestly do think it has a lot of potential because it kind of the idea stemmed before. I don't know if you guys know Sexy Sax Man, that YouTube viral video that came out like maybe in 2012, 2013, where the saxophone player played that really famous tune, like the one that goes like that really romantic like 80s R&B tune. I forget what it's called, Baker Street or something. But he did something similar with a saxophone, and I think Snuggie Keytar Man has like some sort of appeal in that realm of like awkward skit musical humor, and I would love to do it again. Honestly, I think that if I do it though again, I have to really do a lot better job with the video editing, and because that and building the story in the video, because content creation is not easy, as you guys know, right? Yeah, it takes a lot of framework and editing skills that I think take it to the right level, right, to be super quality. So that's the area of focus I would need to do for the next time if I do it again. But I would love to do it again.
And the great thing now is things have changed dramatically since the first time you released those videos, because now you have TikTok, you have Reels, you have Snapchat stories and videos. So you have a lot more platforms that you can try. So if it doesn't go viral on YouTube, it can go viral on Instagram, or it can go viral on TikTok or Snapchat or whatever the other platforms that are out there. So you have a lot more opportunities for it to go viral on some platform.
That's very true. And I'm going to write this down. Thanks for the idea, too.
And you can really build out the character of Snuggie Keytar Man. Over time, obviously.
So merch, Snuggie Keytar Man merch.
So it's a funny thing. I mean, I listened to this NPR Planet Money podcast, and they did this whole series where they were trying to find the new character for or superhero character. So they actually came up with the character. I'm forgetting his name, but it's supposed to be. Oh yeah, it's called Microface, right? So the idea behind it is this microphone face person, like who everything he does, it just amplifies quite a bit. And they did this whole series of trying to identify the superhero. And once they identified, it took a lot of time, obviously. They did this entire conference on Microface, just really blasting it out in front of people. They did a comic book and so on. Maybe you can do something like that once it goes viral. Once you really build out the character of Snuggie Keytar Man.
Yeah, I mean, Snuggie Keytar Man definitely has a voice. He's a story. Yeah, so it has to be shown.
You actually have so much opportunity there, because now you also have the concept of duets, right? Like on most video sharing platforms, people can duet to it. So you can have you can have a skit going on and just ask people to duet, and you can get yourself even more known, because it's not even your own video going viral. It's other people's duet videos to your video going viral.
Okay. I know what you're talking about. I've seen those before. Yeah. No, you're right. There's a lot. Yeah. There's a lot of opportunity out there. It's it's all about really immersing yourself in that kind of stuff, because I remember, like I was saying before, when I was working at L'Oreal, I immersed the hell out of video production and putting up Instagram videos like every night, YouTube videos every other night, just so that I can just create. So yeah, it's a matter of just like going all in on it too, right? And really focusing on it. So it's about finding the time, is what I'm trying to say, because there's a lot going on right now. So Speaking
of duet, Eitan, I was going through your Instagram. I noticed you did a duet. I don't know if it's duet or like a collab with Jacob Collier recently. I do want to mention, I really follow him religiously, and he actually performed in SF just a couple of months ago, and we went to his concert. One of the most dynamic musicians I've ever come across.
Yes.
Plays 20 instruments. Do you follow him as well? Was it just like a one?
No, of course. I've been following Jacob Collier since the infamous Flintstones video came out on YouTube. That's what really caught my attention. I think that was 3 or 4 years ago. And then after that, watching him evolve into the musician he is today, honestly, it's been awesome. He's evolved into a musician that I'm not tired of listening to. He has so many ideas, he's just a virtuoso in every sense of the word, from musically to video production to music production to wisdom even. I feel like hearing him speak and he was only 17 when I first started listening to him, or maybe 16, but he was already 10 years ahead of his age in terms of his thought process, and everything else that he was doing. And so like, and I think that, I don't know, he's one of my favorite musical artists in general. I haven't seen him live though. I haven't seen him live though, which I would love to.
You should definitely. It's just his energy is infectious. It's just he just really immerses you in the entire experience when he's performing live, and he engages the audience. I think I don't know if you saw that he will divide the audience into 3 groups, and then he will basically ask them to sing in a certain note. He mentioned though, like I went to the concert in San Francisco. This is where this phenomenon started. This is in San Francisco. This is where he started this engaging the audience piece, and it's just really immersive, fascinating experience. I highly recommend if you ever get an opportunity. I was very lucky to get it myself.
Well, I was gonna go to him, but then COVID happened, and then the ticket got canceled. No. So I never got to see him, but I had a ticket at one point. But that's awesome, man. Jacob is one. He's going to go down as one of the greatest musicians alive, I think. You know,
I 100% agree with you.
Yeah.
Okay. So switching gears a little bit. So you've been producing music. You've been doing gigs, as well as performing at other events such as weddings and stuff. What is the biggest difference that you've seen over time in terms of how the music is shared with the world, right? So earlier it was YouTube, and then it evolved into Spotify, and then now we are at a time where everybody is has the opportunity to release their music on Spotify. What's your observation has been in this journey and this evolution?
Yeah, I mean, like you said, everything is completely digitalized in every sense of the way. I mean, there's, even people doing things with NFTs, right? With music distribution, which I find fascinating, but I don't necessarily buy it, literally and figuratively. Yeah, but it just goes to show the transformation and people just completely leaning on digital transformation for music distribution and streaming. I mean, there still are technically record sales. People do buy vinyl. It's like a very retro thing that people like to have as sort of like a collector's thing. So I think that's still in terms of like the collector's kind of thing. But yeah, it's been interesting. And I will say that personally for me, it's been a blessing because I think selling CDs would be a lot harder for me than just putting it on the internet and having people stream it and distributing it that way. I mean, there's a pro and a con to it, right? Because typically when you have online distribution, your commissions get really squeezed because you have to go through so many different publishers and streaming platforms who take, the majority of your cut, whether that's iTunes, whether that's Spotify streaming, whether that's YouTube, Amazon, Apple Music, the list goes on. At least with CDs, you used to be able to manufacture and sell, but it still took its own complete individual effort to get the sale, right? You had to be your own salesperson the entire time. With digital distribution, it is interesting to see that even with the profit margins getting squeezed like hell, which makes it tougher for the musician who lives based on music, I would say, because they really have to pump even harder. Let's say their sales tactics. But for me personally, because I have a day job, it's not as much of a burden. And for me, it's like nice to have. I'm distributed worldwide. I'm on Spotify. I'm in every single country just by the click of the button. So for me, it's really cool. So I mean, I can't necessarily see the music industry drifting away from that. I think the only thing that might change from a regulation or like legal standpoint is the potentially like, musician lawsuits with these streaming platforms to maybe get bigger cuts, or kind of, you'll see like, you see things like Tidal coming up. Tidal is supposed to protect a lot more musicians' rights and royalties and commissions. So you might start seeing stuff like that more often. So, but I think in terms of distribution and availability, it's an awesome thing just to have it all at your fingertips, just like everything else, right? Anything else, educational, informational, video. So I love it. I'm a big YouTube fan in general. So
yeah, Eitan, I'm still waiting for you to become a huge artist so that you can issue an NFT for like your original CD, because I still have it.
Oh yeah,
Look at
nice.
this. Yeah, I mean, the thing is,
You
there
literally
it
still
is.
have it in your hands.
Yep. Why is it fading in and out because of
I
the
don't
virtual
know.
background?
It's an NFT, man. That's why it's not real.
Hold on,
uh,
let's turn off this video background.
That is amazing. Ketal. Is that your first album, Eitan, or is this one of the
yeah,
later ones?
that was the first one. I remember I like hand
Yeah.
delivered that to a lot of people.
2017,
No,
2017. I still got it.
yeah, the OG copy.
Exactly.
Um,
So one day when you issue an NFT for the holders of the original one, I'm expecting that NFT.
yeah, I mean, this again, going back to the NFT things, I'm curious about what you guys think about that because in my mind, actually, so I was talking to, my friend Vinay's cousin who works at Coinbase, and she's like a fan of my music actually, and she's been pitching to me. She's like, "Hey, you should totally, do an NFT for your music," and I'm just like, "That's interesting," but like, I have no idea what that really means, what that means in terms of legal protection, because it's like in the space of it's like a floating space where maybe nothing is actually protected because things get stolen for NFTs left and right, so what does that actually mean and who does it get distributed to anyway, right? So what are you guys thoughts on that, the whole space of NFTs and what it means for the future, because I'm curious about that.
So my stance on that is from a utility perspective, there's a lot of opportunity because essentially an NFT is a smart contract, right? It's you have the ability to verify the ownership. So it's representative on things, right? So a good example could be that the person that owns the NFT they can redeem it for an original copy of a CD or something like that, right? You can have some kind of transactional value. And the other thing is you can actually set up smart contract terms that every single time that NFT is sold to someone else, you can take a piece of that transaction value. So for example, let's say the NFT is worth $10 a piece, right? Every NFT issue is worth $10 a piece.
Mm-hmm.
You can set up a smart contract that every time that NFT is resold to someone else for whatever reason, right? Because it's supposed to be representative of something. Like it can be a concert ticket, representative of ownership to like a digital CD or something like that. You can set like a 10% transaction fee. So every time that $10 NFT is sold to someone else, you get $1. And that's just hypothetical number, right? You can also make that huge numbers where it's $1,000 for an NFT and you take a 10% cut of that every single time it's resold. So the real idea behind it is it almost creates a secondary market royalty stream for the creator of the NFT. In your case, it's in the form of an artist.
So it's in other words, it's sort of like just like another distribution platform, but it retains a lot more value for the like the intellectual property owner. Is what you're saying?
Not so much the intellectual property piece. I mean, that is a piece of it. The main thing is you're basically guaranteed getting that royalty income because every time that NFT is resold, you get a piece of the pie if you set up the contract terms the correct way.
Yeah. So it's predicated off of having buyers really in the secondary market. That's really like the it's just like anything else. You just have to have a market for like people to buy it on that space, really.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Okay.
And they also need something that they can redeem it for, right? So, for example, if you have the NFT representative that with this NFT you can now stream an exclusive song off of eitanlevine.com, right? That NFT you could redeem in order to use in order to listen to an exclusive song. Well, then now it has a monetary value, right? Because if you have some of your biggest albums out that are exclusive on your platform, the only way they can access it is by owning this NFT. And so now you're creating value because if they want to listen to that song, they have to use the NFT, own the NFT.
And can that NFT get stolen? And like, is it like in terms of security and stuff though? Is it what's that like on that in that world?
It's the Wild West.
It's the Wild West. That's what. Yeah. It's a lot of unknowns,
yeah,
right?
But it also doesn't matter from your perspective though, because from your perspective, every time it gets transferred or resold, you're getting a cut anyway. Yeah. Right. So from a purely monetary perspective, it doesn't matter. But from a security perspective, it's just like a ticket, right? If you had a concert ticket and you lost it and someone else picked it up, now it's their concert ticket, assuming there's no name on it, right? So it's the exact same concept there where yes, it can be stolen. Yes, it's digital. So you have more people that could potentially steal that information from you. But that's the risk you run with any purchase.
Sure.
Right? Even if you buy a phone, right? Someone can steal the phone. Right? It's no different. Just one is physical versus the other is digital.
Yeah. I feel like that space is interesting, and I think that it's just like any other thing where there's going to be a lot of first adopters, and 99% of the ideas are going to fail on it until you find that the right way to market certain things, and then people really start trusting it more. Because I think
you're right. You're right. You're 100% right. Right now, it's still the wild, wild west. The concept is brilliant, but it's probably, in my eyes, it's a decade out before there's real utility.
Yeah, it'd be
Yeah,
interesting to
yeah.
see
I
how it
mean,
evolves.
it will. That's been my learning as well. Just to build on what Ketul said, I 100% agree with everything you said, Ketul. But just also, the ecosystem as still needs to be evolved, right? There's a lot of theft happening. As you said, it's Wild West, right? The system, security system needs to be set in place yet, and that will take some time. And then, like, probably like a decade or so, I think probably in a stable position where NFT will actually become a thing. It's like Bitcoin, right? Like 10, 12 years ago. Like it started in 2008, 14 years ago almost. And in the
Yeah.
beginning, nobody trusted it. There wasn't enough systems in place. But now we're getting to a point where it's still unsecure, but there's a lot of trust around the overall idea of cryptocurrency. And I think it's going to be the similar concept there going forward.
Yeah, that just reminded me of Catul actually, because Catul, remember in L'Oreal your Bitcoin trading days?
Yes.
Oh my God!
Catul was
it?
So Catul, at least from what he told us, the times that he did it, he was very successful in his trading at Bitcoin. So
Wow,
that was
how
the
much were
early
you
days.
trading it at?
Well, this was
What's the
back
price?
in 2017.
yeah, I think you were buying it when it was still like 13,000 and riding it to like maybe 15 or 16 or something like that.
Yeah, that's right.
Wow.
Yeah, that sounds about right. Yeah, so it was like that first wave.
Yeah,
Of that.
and I remember Catul. He was so excited because it's like he knew exactly what was going to happen with this wave, this psychological wave of Bitcoin. He was like, I remember him telling me and our mutual work friend Dan at the time that he's like, oh, it's gonna go up. It's just gonna be a huge psychological wave up, and he was completely right. And he got out and he made a killing. And I was like, how did you know that? And I was just like, what the hell, man?
Yeah, no, I remember some people bought it at 20,000 and then it traded at like 5 or 6,000 for like a year or year and a half.
It dropped like crazy. It dropped
Yeah.
like crazy.
And then it jumped back again. So yeah, I remember that, the first wave that you're talking about.
These stock markets and crypto markets are nuts right now. Nutty.
Yeah, so Deepam, you don't even know these stories. We had some incredible stories during our days at L'Oreal. It was definitely the most interesting company I worked at.
Well, it wasn't the most interesting company you worked at. It was the most interesting people you've worked with, I would say.
That is true. That is true.
Interesting, almost interesting company of people. I guess that's where you're going with.
Sure.
Yeah, so actually, awesome. Eitan sent me a video a little while ago. It was a video where, for a brief minute, L'Oreal actually had its temporary headquarters set up in Berkeley Heights in the AIG office. So we were basically subletting from the AIG office. And so Eitan reminded me, because I completely forgot about this, but there was a period of time that I basically finessed my way into an AIG meeting and into a line for like baked goods and stuff like that, just because I got dared to see if I can get free food over there for an AIG,
oh my God.
AIG only lunch. So that was it was actually hilarious, because I basically just got in line, pretended I was part of AIG, and people asked me, it's like, oh, so how do you know, how'd you get invited to this meeting? And I just made up stories. I was like, oh, you know Steve? Yeah, well, Steve's actually my boss, and he basically invited me to this, and then he asked, how, are you new? And I was like, yeah, I've actually only been here for a handful of weeks, so still getting acquainted with everyone. So I made up BS after BS, and I got my free meal.
God.
Wait, actually no. Wait, I take that back. I got my free meal and I won $40 because the dare was for $40.
Yeah, you made out like a bandit that day. I honestly cannot believe you actually did that. That took some balls, man. My God.
Yeah.
Well, anything for $40.
This was a long time ago, and I was like, yeah, I could use an extra $40, and actually the bidding kept going up, because I remember so one of our coworkers there was Hanny Allen, and the bidding started at like $10, and no one was doing anything for $10. Then it's like, if someone does, I'm willing to pay $20. I was like, you know what, make it 40 and I'll do it. and then it went up to 40 and I actually did it. So.
Yeah, Catul, amazing. You know who you need to bring on this podcast next? You need to bring on Maggie.
That would be fantastic.
If you brought on Maggie, it would be one of the most lit podcasts of the century. I would say that. You know how many topics you guys would just randomly bring up? It would be awesome.
Dude, that is a fantastic idea. We should have a podcast episode with just the L'Oreal crew.
Yeah. Oh my God, that'd be fun. Except for Deepam, who doesn't know.
Yeah, I have no idea what you guys are talking about.
So,
but I'm just enjoying your stories and your expressions. So I'm already having a lot of fun just by looking at you guys.
Dude, this is tame. If Maggie was on here, oh my God.
Oh, yeah, we would have some wild conversations. My gosh. Right. Yeah, I mean, that's what we mean when we say we had interesting people. I mean, we really had it was a nutty crew in the best of ways. Like, everybody had such wild, different personalities on our team. It was the first job I had out of college into the MSL team, we called it, in L'Oreal, and I got inducted, I think, into like the best kind of sense of humor kind of corporate group I've ever been a part with. So it was like a really cool experience, honestly. So.
I can totally sense that from all your conversations. So
yeah,
100% agree.
So Deepam, to give you a sense, and this is not like a Google office or anything, right? This is on the East Coast. But basically, in the office, we would be flying, basically those remote controlled helicopters, remote controlled cars. We'd have one of those dart guns that we would throw around. This was inside the office, like not even outside. Inside the office, we were doing all this, and no one would say anything, which is even better. Like, our boss and like our VP would just walk by and they would just laugh. That's it. So it was awesome.
I think that was fun, but I also think that's tame in terms of a lot of things that happened, which we can't talk about on this podcast for security purposes. But
okay, I see where this is going.
Yeah, that's a little too unfiltered, even for the unfiltered.
Yes, we need to filter. We need to filter just a tiny bit. It's not often that you get a group like that, I feel like, in a workplace, especially in a corporate workplace, right, where you just like it feels like a family, and like it's a dysfunctional but awesome family. That's what it felt like.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, well, let's switch gears for a minute. We're going to move into the next segment of our podcast, which is the rapid fire round. So in this segment, we'll just ask a series of basic questions just to get to know you a little bit better. Are you ready for it?
Let's do it.
All right. So first question, Eitan. Tea or coffee?
Coffee.
Okay. Mountains or beaches?
Mountains.
Okay. Interesting. You're a New Jersey resident saying mountains over beaches. That's interesting. Okay.
It's the introspective part of me, right? The mountains.
Yeah. You don't sound convincing, man. I don't know what's
Yeah, there's some doubt there. I feel like it's beaches.
Well, yeah. Maybe I'm on the fence about that one. Yeah. I don't know. I'm not sure. These rapid fire questions throw me off a little bit. All right, go for the next one though.
Morning person or night owl?
Morning person or night owl? Honestly, I'm becoming more of a morning person as I get older. So I think I'm saying morning person.
Okay.
Is it by choice or by design?
It's sort of like I started waking up a lot earlier in the past year for work, and I just got so used to it, and I've become a lot more productive in the morning as a result. And so I'm just like, my brain's now wired that way, I think. So yeah.
Hey, what's your favorite comfort food?
Comfort food, Taco Bell.
I like that answer. I like that answer a lot. All right. Favorite virtue in others?
Honesty.
Okay. Biggest pet peeve?
I guess liars as a opposite to honesty.
Okay. What's your biggest accomplishment in the last couple of years?
Biggest accomplishment. I don't know. I guess it would have to do something with my music and the amount of kind of albums and EPs and music I've been putting out. I've been just pumping stuff, and I've been producing and creating a lot of material, like original material. So I've been very proud of that.
Okay.
I actually posted a LinkedIn article about how proud I was about it the other day.
Yeah. And we do want to plug Eitan over here. So Eitan, if you want to say your Instagram handle.
My Instagram handle is 8onmusic. So 8 KEYTON. I think it's underscore music.
Awesome. All right. So for all you listeners, if you're interested to learn more about Snuggie Keytar Man and Eitan's ventures as a musician, definitely check out his Instagram handle. Again, that's 8ON_music. All right. Final question. So what is next for you, Eitan, as you look out the next 5+ years?
My God, that is a good question. Man, I don't, it's tough. I don't know. The one thing that I want to sort of expand on, at least musically, is I would love to get into more sync licensing opportunities. And I know I've talked with you a little bit about that, Katul, and you've sort of helped like push some websites along my way to submit my music and, for commercials or movies or video games, that kind of thing. That's the category I would love to grow into within the next 5 years. It's something that I've been dying to get into, and I've tried different avenues and different contacts to get into, so far without success, but I'm still working on trying to figure out who to connect with and how to get there. So it's a very saturated market. It's a very protected, cutthroat, because it's a very unique and small amount of people that do it. But I would love to get in there with the next 5 years. Other than that, besides music, I'm gonna, I want to continue playing and performing live. And then work-wise, just supply chain is sort of where my expertise lies in terms of the day job life, and just continue to grow there. I don't know exactly what that evolves into, but I think right now that I've kind of transitioned a little bit further away from supply and more towards demand, getting closer to the commercial side. I sort of like being in this world and learning about it. So we'll see where that takes me. I don't know. Maybe it takes me to a world outside of supply chain. Who knows? But I think at the end of the day, as long as I keep on growing individually and learning things that are beneficial to, growing myself and life things, I think that's just going to be the key to success no matter what. So.
Oh, that's awesome. Actually, if I recall correctly, I believe that means you went full circle, because I vaguely remember you mentioned that you started in demand, right? I believe that's when you were in New York City for L'Oreal. You started in demand.
I didn't. Oh no, that was my second role in the rotational program. Yeah.
Got it. Okay. Well, the reason I thought that was your first is because that was the internship that I was interviewing for.
Yeah, that was the one where I pissed you off, probably.
No, the other way around. I think I pissed you off.
Oh, you pissed me off.
Just because they're like, that time doesn't work, that time doesn't work, this time doesn't work, and you're like, you know what? I don't think this is right for you.
I don't think this is gonna work, Katul. I'm sorry.
That is hilarious. The funny thing is, you guys still ended up working together on the same team. So, Eitan, just one question before we kind of move towards wrapping up our discussion today. And as a musician, we struggle quite a bit with consistency and, kind of learning or improving ourselves in terms of the musical instruments. What advice do you have for struggling musicians who are trying to learn music, but also the life gets in the way, right? So how do they find their inspiration? Is there any schedule that they can follow? Any other ideas that you have? What's your process that way that you can help our listeners with, and and for me as well?
Sure. I mean, inspiration is one of those things that you can never really capture and control, I would say, right? If you're always looking for it, you're probably never going to find it, right? But I would say if you're a musician, or if you're an aspiring musician, or you're just starting off, you just want to learn an instrument, or, it depends on what level you're at. But I think that regardless of what level you're at, as long as you dedicate some level of time to committing to learning any facet of the music, right? Whether that's how to play a G chord on the guitar, a new fingering for a different G chord on the top, frets versus the bottom frets, expanding your music theory knowledge by looking at YouTube videos, learning scales, learning what chord progressions are, how to record, how to record in a musical software, how to use MIDI, like all these things. As long as you dedicate some level of time per week that you're comfortable with, that won't throw off your I would say your main life kind of duties, then I would say do it, right? I mean, I know everybody's super busy, and everybody has multiple things going on, whether it's family, main work, relationships. So it's all about trying to carve out just a little bit of time every week or whatever you're comfortable with to dedicate to learning a little bit more about music, whether that's actually applying it to an instrument or any other facet of the music. So I think that would be my only advice, especially if you're trying to look for inspiration. Again, I don't think you're gonna just always get it. I think you just need to immerse yourself as much as you can in things of music to feel inspired, you know?
Yeah, yeah. So almost basically forcing yourself to do or pursue music so that you can find inspiration, and then from there on, it's like the repeated cycle. That makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
It's kind of like it with anything else. You're never going to be an expert on anything or let's call it achieve success if you're not going to actually immerse time in learning the tools of the trade behind that thing that you're learning, right? So I think it's always important just to figure out a little bit of the base around what you're trying to achieve so that it can provide some level of motivation. So
for sure. Okay, so that's extremely helpful. Hope our listeners find it helpful as well. So last question before we wrap our discussion for today. Do you have any recommendations for our listeners? A recommendation could be a movie or a TV series or a book that you're reading. It could be a music album as well in your case. Anything that one or two.
Wow. Hold on. Is this the moment where I pitch my own music? Hold on.
It can be if you want it to be.
Yeah.
Let's see. I mean, I just finished. The only thing that's fresh in my mind is I just finished season 5 of Better Call Saul, and I really love that. Love that series. So if you're into kind of, lawyer-based dramas of revolving drug lords, then sure, definitely go for that. Musically, I mean, I listen to a little bit of everything, man. It's all over the place. I'm into beats, and I think I like to create beats. I like to listen to beats, and this one guy I've been listening to a lot. His name is Otis McDonald. Just found out about him recently. I'm very much into his stuff. It's mostly instrumental. Actually, I think it's all instrumental, but they're just kind of like 2-minute beats, and he has like a lot of them. And so I've been on that wave lately of that kind of vibe, I would say. So, yeah,
that is amazing. I'm definitely going to check it out. Thanks so much.
All right. Well, thank you, Eitan, so much for joining. This concludes our podcast episode. I did want to remind everyone, if you're not already connected, please be sure to connect with @YourLifeUnfiltered on Instagram. Be sure to definitely follow us on Spotify. Give us a thumbs up, 5-star rating. As a relatively small podcast at the moment, your ratings will help us so much to be able to get increased visibility on the platform. So we really appreciate all your support. Thanks everyone for joining and tuning in, and have a great rest of your day. Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you.